Hi class, this is Professor Z. I want to just briefly walk you through the annotation lessons, and I want to show you an example of how I annotated, or how I might expect you to annotate the community college students face a long road to graduation reading. So this was I gave you two lessons. This was the first one, which just kind of gives you the steps of annotating, and it tells you to paraphrase main ideas in the margins. Paraphrase means put the ideas into your own words. The reason you do that is to monitor your comprehension. If you can put it into your own words, then it's likely that you understand it. It's also more likely to stick in your brain. The second thing you can do is mark main ideas and supporting details. This is what a lot of students do, and sometimes rely too much on, which would be underlining or highlighting. And you don't want to go too crazy. Sometimes students get a little carried away, start highlighting the whole thing, but you have to be really selective. Otherwise, you're not really doing yourself any good. Something that you're going to do a lot of is look up words that you don't know. This is how you're going to build your vocabulary. This is how you're going to reading's going to get easier over time. It's like you're building up your reading muscles. The more words you're familiar with, the easier it is to comprehend what you're reading. And then the last thing you can do that also helps quite a bit is to make connections to the reading. This is another way to just make it sink in and stick in your head. The problem that often students encounter is they read something, they're like, okay, I get it, and then they walk away from it. And then the next day in class, I go, so what did you read about? And you're like, I don't really remember. But if you do these steps, paraphrase the main ideas and put them into your own words, make connections to other things. So in other words, make connections to your life, make connections to other readings that you've done, to other things that you've experienced. Anything like that is just an anchor. It's a way to get it, it's just a way to get it, make it more likely that it sticks in your brain, okay? So those are the things you're gonna do when you annotate. And then the other important piece, which is, you're gonna hate me for this, annotating slows down the reading process, but it makes it more efficient in a way. It makes you a better reader, makes you better able to digest what you're reading. But the second thing I want you to really strive to do, and it's harder, and the more experience you have as a reader, the better you're going to get at it, is to do the descriptive outline. And what the descriptive outline shows is the organization of the thing that you're reading. It breaks it down and explains like what the purpose is of each paragraph, okay? So you might say, oh, this paragraph is introducing the topic, or this paragraph is giving an example of the main idea, or it's introducing the main idea, or it's considering a counter argument, or stating a conclusion. So they give you a list of the functions that you might put into a descriptive outline, okay? So I just want to show you what my, an example of what an annotation might look like of the community college students face a very long road to graduation reading might look like. And what I did was over here on the left side, I put my first read annotations. And over here on the second side, I did my second read annotation, which would be the descriptive outline, where that's much harder to do on the first read because sometimes you don't understand yet why you're being told what you're being told. So on my first read, over here, I tried to summarize what I thought was the main idea of this paragraph. I said it's about D'Amelio, who you'll see I put a square around. I like to put squares around keywords and people's names. And then I circled any words. Now, I know these words, but these were words that I thought a lot of students might not know. If I were you, I would circle them, arrow out to the margin, and put a definition. Okay, and what I put here was I just tried to summarize what was happening in this paragraph, which is that we are told about an art teacher at a community college, and he's teaching a class where he's teaching what sounds like a tough assignment. Okay, so I really tried to boil it down to the essence of the paragraph. The next paragraph was about Vladimir. It introduces him, and it tells me that he's been at LaGuardia on and off sporadically for 6 years, and that he's about halfway to his to graduation. So I put that that's pretty much what my summary was, that he's a community college student and he's about halfway there in 6 years. And then you'll notice too, I started to abbreviate his name to just V. So I'm just, trying to be efficient as an annotator here. And this again tells me some more stuff about him. It tells me that he's really interested in the arts and that he lost both his mother and his younger sister to AIDS. So I tried to summarize that in the margin. I also responded here with a sad face. Another thing I could do here is make a connection. If I've lost somebody, I could write about how I've experienced something similar to what Vladimir has experienced. Similarly here in the community college paragraph, I might connect it to my own education experiences. Those are things that I can do in the margins where I'm responding and I'm more likely to remember what I've read. And honestly, a stronger annotation than the one I've done would do that. So next paragraph talks about when his family moved to Puerto Rico and he lived in poverty there, and then he did poorly in high school. I may have to look up dismal. And again, I'm just summarizing over here what I thought the key points were of the paragraph. This next short paragraph gives me a physical description of Vladimir and talks about his tattoos and what he has tattoos of. If you come across names of people who you don't know, you should look them up, because if you don't know who Che Guevara is and you looked him up, you'd find out that he's a rebel and a Cuban revolutionary. He's also a Marxist. That might tell you something about Vladimir and what is valuable to him. Similarly, if I assumed you might know who Bob Marley is. If you don't, you would also look up Bob Marley and find out that he's a musician and find out a little bit about some of his themes and what he sings about. As we continue down the page, we find out that he really cared about art and history, didn't care about school. And then at the last paragraph on the bottom of the page, the reading starts to open up beyond Vladimir, and it starts to talk about all community college students. And it says that he's both prototype and outlier. Now, if you don't know what prototype and outlier mean, you're going to have a lot of trouble comprehending that paragraph. I kind of gave you, we're going to talk about this in class, so I didn't want to give it away too much, but prototype and outlier really means that he's both similar and different from other community college students, and then the rest of the paragraph tells you how he is both similar and different. Now, I just want to go back up and show you what I did, what I would do on a second read, right? Once I've read the whole piece, I'll have hopefully a little bit better of an understanding of what the writer's trying to accomplish, what they're trying to convey to me. And in my second read, I'll do my descriptive outline. I'll also go back and revise annotations, add things, and improve on what I did the first time through. But what I would say the purpose of this paragraph is to introduce the classes that Vladimir attends, right? The reading's really about Vladimir and community college students. It's not about this teacher, right? I didn't know that at first, but I know it now that I've finished the reading. So I wrote here, introduction to classes that Vladimir attends. Much of the rest of this first page is background about Vladimir. So that's what I wrote the purpose of all this was. This is background of Vladimir, more background, okay? And then at the bottom of the page, let me just bring this over here. It talks about the larger context of community college students. That was my descriptive outline note here, because it's placing Vladimir in the context of other community college students. Notice I didn't outline and I barely underlined anything. The only idea I underlined was this one here, that he's both prototype and outlier, because that seemed to me to be an important idea that's going to get developed later in the piece. But what I've mostly done is paraphrase main points in my own words as best as possible. I've looked up words I don't know. I've tried to make some connections, and I've tried to do a descriptive outline. It takes a little bit of time, but and sometimes you're going to feel like you can do this. Some readings in college, you may find, hey, this one's really important. I've really got to buckle down, do this first reading, do this second reading. Other times you may feel like, hey, I can get away with doing a faster reading with not as perfect annotations. But you really want to get in the habit of reading with a pen in your hand and responding actively to what you're reading, okay? So that's just a little lesson here on how to do the annotation. Hope it helps.